And welcome back to another edition of Living Room Radio. I'm your host, Dave Duenez, with my co-host, as always, Emil Carr. We're still missing Kenny. Kenny should actually be back next week. I think that's the plan, next week or the following week. He's just getting it situated, going still. That computer, man, he's got one of those like Terminator computers. So it's just he's got to put everything back together. And he was explaining it to me, Emil Carr, but I was just like, when somebody starts talking to you about something, but you don't want to sound dumb or look dumb, so you're just like, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah. I've had that problem before, and I was just like, what the fuck is he talking about? Oh yeah, yeah, I do too, man. I think a lot of us, actually, a lot of our listeners miss Kenny, and they're just like, man, tell us the truth already that he's never going to come back. Actually, that's not even true. I do speak to him every week, man, and yeah, like he said, dude, I miss coming on, but you know, because of what's going on in New York, and New York really got that major hit from the COVID and stuff. And you guys were actually the first ones to go in quarantine, and just so much stuff was going so fast that everybody had to basically rearrange their life and their living. So, Kenny was one of those, man, where he just had to basically kind of, because he lives with his brother and he's got a roommate. So now everybody is in one spot, so the privacy was really not there, and he had to respect everybody else's privacy. That's why you're not seeing Kenny or hearing Kenny on the show, because of the time situation. Remember that old saying, hashtag blame Bob, Bob Arum, blame Bob Arum. I hashtag blame COVID why Kenny is not on the show with us right now. Yeah. Oh man, the whole country's a whole hot mess right now. I mean, so many things are going on. I don't know when things are going to. I don't know when things are going to go back to normal. I made the prediction, like a lot of folks, and I even think yourself, and anybody with a brain had said that things are not going to go back to normal. I don't see anything going back to normal, even with sports, until maybe mid or late of 2021. I'm a Debbie Downer, I know that, but I'm a realist, and the way I'm looking at things is it's going to take some time, because the fact that we're so divided at the moment, this country is so divided. There's so many things. Everybody wants to be right. Nobody wants to sit down and have a conversation. And that's pretty much what it is. I wish we could sit down, though, Amilcar, and our listeners. I wish I could sit down with Glenn Fieldman, Frank Labardi, and Don Trella about their scorecard for the WBA interim lightweight championship fight that was on Showtime between Rolando Romero and Jackson Marnez. I mean, I don't know about you. I hate when we automatically start jumping up and down and start calling robbery, but this is not one of those where I'm like hesitant to say this was a robbery. I saw a kid clearly outbox somebody we kind of knew that was limited, that has been considered a power puncher, doesn't really have a lot of footwork, doesn't have a jab, is basically what you see is what you're going to get. And Rolly didn't disappoint in that aspect. He came out with a game plan that he always used, whether he's sparring you or he's trying to come on the come up. That's who he is. But we had a boxer that understood what he was going to face. We had a boxer that understood that he was going to have problems with somebody that would take a half step back, make you miss, and then make you pay. That's what Jackson was doing to Rolly. Rolly never made an adjustment. He did the exact same thing over and over. It was like deja vu. It was Groundhog Day for himself, because good thing for him, Jackson keeps seeing exactly what was going to come at him. He knew that, you know what, I can either step forward, crowd Rolly's punches, and his punches going to go around my neck, or take a half step, or take a step to the side, and all he was going to hit was air, and I'm going to be able to counter punch. I saw the guy, Rolly, get out boxed, get out smart. But for some reason, these three judges, Amilcar, didn't see what I saw and what a lot of other folks that are watching Saturday Night Showtime, the same thing. What was I missing, man? I lost it here, Amilcar. You fell out for a minute. Check out your feed. I don't know what happened there. You know, hopefully we'll get a milk car back on. I don't know what happened. You know, going back with these judges, man, and I've always said this. The cleaner punches, who's got ring generalship, who's controlling the fight, etc., etc., etc. You know, I, I thought clearly that Jackson was doing all of that. What I saw really was Romero committed to his style, which you got to give kudos to because he never gave up and swinging for the fences and trying to land something big. He tried to knock the guy's head off and stuff. And then you would go back and you hear his statement saying that you can't knock out a guy that doesn't want to get knocked out. But your job is to create that. Your job is to cut the ring off. Your job is to make the ring smaller. Your job is to push the boxer back. Your job is to blind him and make him believe that he's got nowhere to go and he's going to have to revert into standing and trading with you. Sorry, I got to text a milk car and let him know what's going on. Um, that was Rolly's job, right? For him to think that the other guy's supposed to do exactly what he's looking for, it's almost like I know we started late in boxing, but you would get the sense that you're supposed to work towards the KO. It's not going to be given to you, right? And then so you sit back and you're like, it's almost as if the judges uh, were in sync with what Roney was thinking, right? That they saw a guy that didn't want to get knocked out, which mean in turn that they saw a guy that wasn't doing anything um, significant enough to give him the right score or the round when he really honestly controlled that fight, right? So I sit there and I just get puzzled and I always wonder, like, again, it's one of those rants that you got to have, but there's never going to be a solution to it because it's the commissions and the promoters don't seem to be bothered with these type of scorecards. Again, these scorecards, I mean, it was 116, 112, 118, 110, which was crazy, and 115, 113. Now, some rounds you could have said they were pretty close, but God, I mean, there was just so many. Again, I go back and I watched the fight twice, and I was like, the first time I was like, did I miss something? Like, what did I not see? I went back and I'm like, I'm seeing the same shit that I watched earlier, and the same stuff that I was picking, saying, yeah, Jackson is doing everything right. And it's kind of discouraging for anybody else that is the underdog that nobody knew about. First off, you know, uh, Romero was the guy that everybody was excited to see. A lot of promising stuff, but but at the same time, I mean, we're supposed to be fair. There's supposed to be balance, right? And that fair and balance that's why we have the three judges to look out from the outside and call the fight correctly. We just don't ever get that in boxing. What was that? Yeah, I thought Martinez won with clean punching. I didn't see. I saw Brody maybe out of 12 rounds, maybe six flush shots, but they were still questionable. I mean, if you're gonna lean, I would go with Rolly, but it wasn't effective. I mean, he was the aggressor. but but it wasn't effective, right? I thought Jackson was having the ring generalship. I thought he was able to do what he wanted. I thought he was forcing Rolly to do, forcing Rolly to miss and make him pay. It wasn't like he was making a miss and then he was taking a step back and then trying to reset himself and throw the punches. You know what I mean? Like, then look for his punches. He knew what he was doing. He knew that Rolly was going to be, that he was going to be the aggressor. He knew that he was going to telegraph his punches, and he knew that he was going to be able to slip it and counterpunch it. To me, that was ring generalship, and to me, he controlled the fight, the rounds. I would have to go with the kid again, Jackson. No, right. Well, I'll tell you this: defensive fighters that are not known, that don't have the pedigree, like a gold medalist as Andre Ward, or the recognition like Floyd Mayweather. I mean, Floyd didn't come off like that in the beginning of his career. He was an aggressive featherweight. He was, somewhat of a knockout artist with hand speed, but with a lot of boxing skills. That's how he started, Pretty Boy Floyd. Then he kind of reverted. The more weight he went up, the more defensive minded he became. So he wasn't named by that time. It's sad to see these kids that come with the defense mind that, and here's the thing about this kid Jackson. His defense though was not running the way Rolly was trying to portray him, like saying, "Oh, you can't knock at a guy that doesn't want to be." I mean, the guy was there. He used the ring effectively. When he needed to. If his legs were too close, or let's say he had to reset himself, he would step out, roll out, and then reset. It wasn't like he took a long time. You didn't see him jog around the ring and then reset. He was there all the time, and that's why Rolly was having a difficult time hitting him, or let's say throwing combinations. It wasn't like Rolly was throwing 5, 6 punches at a time. He was throwing for the fences at the guy. He just couldn't land a punch. And I think that's what's discouraging. You see a defense guy like that went out there and fought a beautiful plan and was in front of him and making him pay every time he swung at the fence, you know, to not even get the decision, or not even have a scorecard that was even close of saying that we can argue, yeah, that some rounds were close. It could have swung there either way. I mean, he didn't even get that. There was nothing there that what the judges basically said was, Rolly, you're right. This guy ran. He wasn't there to fight. He was just there to be a warm body, or he just came to collect the check. It was terrible, man. And that's, to me, that's just really shitty. And it's really shitty that these judges are never accountable for taking away somebody that comes here to the States and fights really hard, comes with a game plan, okay, and comes in and does exactly what he was supposed to do, because this is what his trainer Garcia told him what to do, and it gets all taken away from you because you don't know who he is, and the more of the house name and the more potential of maybe of getting a bigger fight is going to be Romero. It's kind of bullshit. It's the politics getting away with it, and I agree with some fans. It hurts the sport. It's not going to stop us from watching the fucking sport, but it hurts the sport. Yeah, we always want to be careful of using that word, overusing that word, just because the fact that when there is something that is a robbery, which this kid got, I mean, he was robbed in every aspect. He was robbed from a win, a title. You know, he was the judges, all three of them, didn't even give the kid a chance. You know, in one of our leaving the ring emails, somebody was asking me about Oscar De La Hoya jumping in the loop, saying that as a fighter, it's really, really embarrassing. Um, that the behavior that Rolly kind of showed, the way he just kind of like, hey, I won. And when Showtime asked, which I thought was great, I don't know what you guys thought about it, but I thought it was phenomenal that Showtime, stepped up and didn't kind of fall into the like, hey, you won the fight. They called him out and they're like, look, we put it out in the polls, and the viewers pointed out you lost this fight, and he just like shrugged it off, like he did almost like a Calista Shields, like fans don't know what they're watching. I won that fight. But I thought it was brilliant that Oscar jumped in the mix and basically, in my opinion, put the pressure on him by saying, like you should never bring Ryan Garcia into your conversations ever again. And the reason I say that is because to me, that puts pressure on Romero to give that kid Martinez a rematch, deserving that's a very controversial, questionable win. A lot of us are calling that a gift. To me, that was a gift that he got because, in my eyes, among a lot of other people's eyes, he didn't win that fight. So I give Oscar kudos for doing that because he's got no horse in that race between those two fighters, only with his fighter. But I think that helps out to get in the head of Romero by clearing that up, because a great champion, even with Floyd Mayweather, there's a lot of folks that don't like Floyd. With the Madonna fight, with the Castillo fight, what did he do? He gave him a rematch. He immediately gave him a rematch and said, hey, okay, you guys thought it was questionable, controversial, I'm going to clean that up. And what he did, he did a shutout. That's what Roney needs. He's with a TMT. That needs to be a traditional thing from the TMT team then. They need to press for that. They need to make their fighters do exactly what the boss man used to do in his career when he was active, which is it's questionable, it's controversial. Let me erase that. Let me clear that out of your head by giving this guy that you feel beat me another run at the title. That should be automatic from Romero. And I would like to see that. Right. I agree, man. And just really quick, for Amilcar, your phone's breaking up really, really bad. It's hard to hear what you're saying. So I apologize to everybody out there in the chat room saying they can't hear Amilcar really good because it's breaking up. Um, you know, I mean, there's so many different ways we could fix the judging. I think a lot, even fight fans have great ideas. I think one idea for me would be that a judge doesn't know what fight they're going to be assigned to until that exact moment when the fighters are doing the ring walk. I think that's when they should be assigned and told. Um, I think also that their history of how they judge fights should be looked at and logged. If it's a questionable, you know, scorecard, that should automatically be logged in a red flag. To me, there should be like a certain amount of marks on your record that a fighter team could look just like a fighter's team is able to see the ref and question whether or not they want that ref because they might feel that there's some bias towards them and they say no to that ref. I think every team should have the right to pick their jury, which would be the judges, in order for them to say I'm comfortable with the competence of this judge. Because let's be honest here, these judges, more and more, I mean, I say this on Twitter all the time. If you follow me on my on Twitter, you'll see me. It's not boxing until a judge fucks up the night. It's never boxing until one of these judges give you an outrageous score on their card, or they just completely fuck the night up by not giving it to the right guy. And again, I say loosely robbery. I hate that word robbery because sometimes, the rounds could be very questionable, they could be debatable. But when it comes kind of clear with this kid that beat Rolly, I mean, I don't think anybody, unless you're like a Rolly fan and you're blind, and you don't watch boxing, you only watch him fight, then yeah, you're going to be on his side, okay, if you're on the Romero team. But a real fight fan, a real fight fan who watches the sport and watches every fight could sit back and automatically see it. Like, this is just bullshit. Yeah, I actually can hear you really good. Yeah, no, you know what? It was shit. It was yesterday, I think, in the middle of the night. It was blazing hot over here. You know, it was freaking hot over here in Northern California, and then we had storm and rain and really weird, man. Anyways, hey, let's move on really quick. On that Showtime card, we did have a heavyweight fight. Otto Wallen, who fought Travis Kaufman. Um, Whalen went out there. Dude, it was so one-sided. Kaufman, he hurt his shoulder. Um, but really, I didn't even see him in the fight. I mean, you know, I've never been I don't know about you, but I've never been a Kaufman fan. I've never really thought much of him. I mean, I've always thought he had a great, he's always had a great mouthpiece, but his mouthpiece has never really backed up his boxing skill. So, I didn't really think he was going to do much. And I know he's been threatening that I'm going to retire if I lose another fight. I think you should retire, regardless of whatever was your shoulder or whatever. I honestly, I didn't give him one round. I don't know about you. I didn't see Kaufman in that fight. He's always like that. Right. Right. You, right. You know the thing with Wallin is that I don't know. I don't even know what still where to rate him at, to tell you the truth. I mean, because of this performance so one-sided, and Crawford is just not that good, you know. Like I said, his biggest trait in his skill it was his mouthpiece. Other than that, I was never really impressed by him and what he's done in the ring. Okay, I mean, he's a heavyweight, but there's nothing that stands out that made me go like, oh, this guy's got something there that's going to impress everybody or shake up the heavyweight division. There's never been there, nothing like that. With Wei Ling, it's the same thing. What? No, no. What are you going to say? Right. I gotta agree. I'm interested in seeing him. I'm gonna tell you why I'm interested in seeing him again. Because Wallin still showed that he's a far more superior boxer, that he was able to control Kaufman, not let him in the fight. Because if he was just this other ordinary guy, Kaufman could have got into the fight and could have made it a fight, could have made it an ugly fight, because that's what he was trying to do. He was trying to get in the pocket, get in the chest of Wallin, and Wallin would never let him do that because of that jab. The thing is that what we got from the Fury fight was that Fury's just a much better fighter and dug deeper than Wallin. We need to see that from Wallin. What he needs to do, in my opinion, in the next, run around, if he gets back on television, which he would, because he is with Top Rank, is to be tested to a point that we're going to see some dog in him. Because in order to really be a contender in this heavyweight division, of all the guys that you see right now in the division, going from, Whyte, Povetkin, Ruiz, Fury, Wilder, even Ortiz, who's been out of the scene for a minute, but, Parker, all these guys, is that they got some dog in them. They're willing to fight. Anthony, Joshua Anthony, they all got some dog in them. They're willing to fight. With Wallin, we saw a guy that was comfortable of just breaking down their opponent. And when, really honestly, let me ask you this, and anybody out there that's listening right now, at any time, did you feel Wallin could have stopped him if he would have, pressed a little bit more down on the gas to take Kaufman out? I did. I thought, hey, if he just stepped it up and decided to throw some right hands and uppercuts and decided to let his hands go, there could have been a strong possibility that the shoulder injury wouldn't have stopped it. It would have been Wallin's combinations. Yes. You know who I'd like to see Wallin go in with, and I think this is great because they just signed on with Top Rank, is the Nigerian puncher, what's his name? Ajaba. I think that would be a great test for both of them. Yes, a great test for both of them. Nato says Wallin is what makes the heavyweight so fun. Like Andy Ruiz, he's a spoiler. I think it could be just because he could box. I mean, you can't. I mean, like I said, there's questions there. Like I want to see. We know he can box. We know he can move. For his size, he moves really well. I mean, there's no question about that. Like I said, with the Kaufman fight with Travis, he showed us that this guy that was trying to rough him and really make it into an ugly fight make it his fight, he wasn't allowing that because he jabbed. Like, and it's almost natural for him, which I really love to see when a fighter does it. This is one thing when you know it becomes very natural, that they use their jab so much, even in sparring, hitting the heavy bag, the double M bag, is that after he take a step back to create space for himself and spots for him to take some breath, he jabbed. They're not very stiff jabs, but he jabbed to let the other guy, kind of be hesitant to try to walk back in, and that's a very smart, intelligent way of creating distance and time for you to get a breather. He did a lot of that, but again, I like to see what he does next with another big guy, and like I said, with a Nigerian puncher. I think that would be a good mix-up to see where the radar we could put these guys at in the heavyweight division. We're gonna open up the phone lines. Yeah. Oh man. I mean, I don't think we'll see it this year, which is rightfully so. I think that why does his name keep falling out of my head? I have it right there. The Nigerian kid. Remind me his last name again. Ajaba, right? Yeah, Ajaba. So I don't see him and Walling getting in this year. I think Ajaba's going to have a fight, kind of like a tune-up fight for him as a debut fight with Top Rank, which is always smart. Top Rank does that all the time just to kind of get the ESPN viewers kind of familiar with, because he was on PBC and everything. So I think that's a great way. I could see this happening in the summer of 2021 of kind of figuring out what they're going to do with those two guys, because I think that would be a great way of introducing them into kind of the contendership for the heavyweight division. The winner of those two, to me, would kind of get them a step closer of getting a more significant fight, of now kind of putting them under that contender category. Now, I know you wanted to talk about Warren and Hearns working together, man. Tell us a little bit about that. What do you think? Right. No. I mean, I think what Bob has always shown his colors, and Bob is not one of those to hide who he is. He's pretty upfront. Um, the writing on the wall with him has always been is I'm going to use all my resources before I revert in to say I'm going to play with other guys in the sandbox. He's a business guy, and he's a smart one at that. He's been in the business longer than anybody else right now in the promoter seat. You know, uh, Bob understands the business. Bob understands that he doesn't need the other guy just yet, unless you're going to bring something very lucrative, something so lucrative where he gets the bigger half of the pie. then you're going to get his ears to raise up. But at the moment, I just don't see that. You know, I mean, think about this. The zone doesn't even, it's not even in the same amount of households. I don't think, I could be wrong, but I highly doubt that I'm going to be wrong on this. But the zone is not even in the same amount of households as ESPN is. So why would Bob need that? But there's no fights on ESPN Plus. And it's a smart thing. Well, you know, I didn't like it, to tell you the truth, because I'm paying for it. You know, I was paying for the plus. But it's smart that he said, you know what, let's not put them on ESPN Plus because of the COVID lockdown and quarantine. Put them all back on ESPN, regular ESPN. It's smart because more people are going to watch that. Whereas before the whole COVID-19 situation, everybody was on the run. Everybody was living their daily lives. A lot of folks weren't staying home on Saturday nights. You know, they were attending events. Exactly. Exactly. They don't have that. Look at the you know, college football right now. You know, Lomachenko and Lopez. They don't have to compete with that, so it's not going to go pay per view. It's going to go on regular ESPN October 17th. So I think that what Bob is looking at is like, look, if the Zone had more to offer, that and likewise with the business wise of the pie, I think he would play ball. But at the moment, I don't think anybody can argue and say he needs them, or he needs Golden Boy or Hearn or Al Heyman or any of them at the moment, because what he's doing, it's working. It may not be the greatest fights. We're not getting like these top A-list fights from ESPN, but he's getting paid. Right. You know, like Fury and Wilder happened because there was a title on the line. And you know, that's something that Bob understands and needs. Titles, titles are, you know, every fighter wants a title. That's their dream. That's why they lace up gloves. They want to make history, have the title, especially the WBC. Okay, but also it intrigues the fans because a casual fan would be like, oh, who's fighting? Oh, these two heavyweights, the heavyweight champions of the world. Just that automatically hearing the heavyweight champion of the world is an attraction for anyone. So Bob understands that, and that's why he's been in the business for 80s plus, you know what I mean, or whatever, how many years. I think the guy's like, what, 170 right now? You know, been in the business for like 90 years. But he's been in his business. So, yeah, I mean, I know for a fact I couldn't sit there and argue with him about what moves he's going to make about this certain fight, because who am I? You know, I'm not even a baby in the game. I'm still in I'm still in my dad's baby nuts, and in his eyes, you're still in your dad's nutsack to try to you know, come across and to give me advice or tell me how to promote and run a promotional company. There's no way. So I see where he's going. It's frustrating as a fight fan. I'll tell you that. I get frustrated with the guy, you know, and I do say, I go like, dude, these were shitty fights. But at the same time, he's getting paid, and that's what it's all about. In business standpoint, it's about getting paid, not just the promotional company and himself, but his fighters. They're all getting paid. They're all getting their money that ESPN has promised them and have locked down with ESPN, and that's the route. The only way you're going to intrigue him to play ball with anybody else is you got to have something that intrigues him, which is either he gives a little bit more of the pie, or your network's doing far much better and you can give his fighter far more exposure, or there's titles on the line. Ooh, I don't know though. I don't. But see, that's here. Here's the thing, the milk cart. You're thinking like a fan that Crawford is in need of this marquee opponent. Is he really in need? Because I mean, either way, he's going to get paid. Bobber has him signed to a contract, and that contract stipulates that he's going to be on ESPN. So ESPN is already committed into the Crawford business. So whoever they get, Crawford is going to get a substantial amount of money that's already been put on black and white on a piece of paper. So Bob is delivering. I don't think it's like the music business. You know, you're never promised a certain amount. You're promised X and O's, but the Y's and Z's and everything else is a perk. You know what I mean? Like if a record company comes to you and go, Milcar, I love the way you sing. You're a hip hop artist. You got the look. I'm gonna produce you an album. We're gonna put you up in the best studios. We're gonna press you a cover album, and you're gonna do a music video. And they do all of that they promise, right? But then when you come to them, hey, when am I going to get released? And they say, well, we did everything we said. We never said we were going to release your album. The same thing with Crawford. You know what I mean? Crawford could go, hey, you know, I want to fight Spence. I want to fight Garcia. Bob could go, I never promised you any of that. And I never said I was going to go negotiate with Al Heyman. I promised you that you're going to get paid and that you were going to live fat and you were going to be on ESPN. And I've delivered that. Plain and simple. You know? Yes. You know, man, there was a lot. I mean, there was a lot that came in on Saturday after, you know, hearing and seeing Benavides 3 pounds over on the weight scale, which um, D Style covered very well on his channel and on his podcast. Um, you know, here's the I was telling this to Brian Fogg, you know, and Brian watches the sport very closely. Used to be a journalist for Leaving the Ring, and he bets on fights. You know, so he's very committed and pays he plays very close attention. And he asked me, "What do you think? You know, you just think that this kid just doesn't care?" And I say, "Well, maybe it could be two things. The COVID thing obviously it's impacted in such a way that it's the access of gyms could be difficult. It really kind of stops certain and I talked about this. I think that the last show that we did live, you know, it really stops certain fighters to do certain routines or rituals that they've been used to because now they have to kind of like find another way of doing things. Okay, that could be one. Okay, that's an excuse, and I'm going to give you a couple excuses. Okay, the second one is that maybe his body just couldn't sweat out the rest because your body could eventually just top out and say, you got to remember, this kid was like 200 something pounds, I think as a junior high kid. You know what I mean? I mean, he was not this right. You know what I mean? He's not a small guy, you know? And you could see that. It's not like he went into the Angulo fight and he was chiseled. I mean, you could still see that there's baby fat on this guy. The third one is that he's not committed. After watching the fight, Amilcar, I'll ask you guys. And I'll ask anybody else who wants to join in the chat room. If you want to call in 347-215-7598, we can recap what we talked about a little bit on here. We do got a lot of stuff that we're trying to cover today, and we've kind of dragged out a little bit too much on some of the topics because I wanted to run through a bunch of the Showtime stuff. But anyways, going back. What you guys saw against Angulu, the hand speed, the footwork, his movement, did that look like a guy that's not committed to his craft, Amilcar, do you think? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the punishment of being stripped and the second time being stripped. One for cocaine use. The second one is not making weight. Nato, let me read this really quick on what Nato had put. Is Benavides falling into the Chavez Jr. territory, in your opinion, Amilcar? What do you think? Or anybody? What do you guys think about it? Right. And his size. I mean, he was bigger than everybody. I'm going to say this because I know Nato put that out there on Twitter as well. And I was cracking up when I saw that. I was like, fuck, I hope not, bro. I was like, I hope not. But, and I think I know where Nato's going to because of the drug, the cocaine, and coming the first time. And Benavides said, look, this is the first time. And I'm like, I'm trying to think, is it the first time? I think it is the first time, right? You know, I if he does it again, then I'm gonna say, yeah, he's starting to hike up the trail of Chavez Jr. But skill level, like you were mentioning, Milcar, it's night and day. Like Benavides, there's no denying the kid is gifted. He looks very comfortable in there. He looks very much in control. He could see the punches coming at him. He opens up when he feels like it. He throws combinations when he decides to. When he wants to get aggressive, he does. Um, I've always said this. Yes, yeah, overall, he's the full package. He is the full package. He's a valiant puncher. He's not the biggest puncher in the world, which I would like to see him sit down more on his punches, but that's not him. He likes to throw volumes of punches. He's a far much better version of a volume puncher than Santa Cruz. You know, he knows how to place his punches. You know, in a lot of ways, he's a scary 168. But I wonder how long can he stay there at 168 if he can't shed these 3 pounds. And you got to give his team the benefit of the doubt. They were saying like his dad immediately said, "We're not going to go anywhere. We're staying at 168," which that is a smart thing to do because those were at 168 is where the bigger fights for him at this moment, right? You got Caleb Plant, you Callum Smith, you got Canelo, all those guys. Okay, you got Ramirez, who's a free agent. So the big fights are there, obviously, right? So I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. I want to see what happens next. The approach. Is this a wake up call for him? This is the second time, dude, you've lost your title, without really losing a fight. And you looked spectacular when you came out. That the disappointment to your fans was like, shit, here's a guy with all the talent in the world. And like Nato right now is putting lack of discipline rarely, if he ever gets better for any boxers. You're right. It rarely does it. We saw that with Andy Ruiz. Super talented guy. Super talented. But just the discipline department was half empty. I don't know how you want to look at it. Is Benavides in that category? I don't know. What do you think? Is he getting to that category? Yeah. Right. Well, let me add this. Let me add this really quick. Um, as us as fans, we were disappointed of seeing Benavides not make weight, lose his title on the scale, go out there, make a great performance, and look sharp, and look as dangerous as we all thought he is at the 168 division. But the fighters that are petitioning for the vacancy of the WBC, how happy are they, bro? You know what I mean? To see that he lost it in the scale, that they don't have to face him to get that title now. They can petition for it, fight somebody else because it's vacant, and get the title with avoiding Benavides. I mean, Benavides, not only did he disappoint his fans, but he really cut his own legs off and getting these bigger fights because now there is a perfect reason that Canelo, Callum Smiths of the world, Caleb Plant, even BJ Saunders and them could say, why am I going to fight him? He doesn't even have a title. Right. Yeah, he certainly did, man. So we're going to see what the WBC is saying that they're going to go into the board and now negotiate or talk about who's going to have the opportunity of fighting for the vacant WBC, which I think we already know who's probably going to be the name that's going to be the only name that's probably going to be in the hat that's going to be drawn out, um, for that for the shot of the WBC vacancy, uh, you know. But anyways, let's move on. Hey, let me ask you this, man. Gary Russell, talking about another very talented guy, fast hands, probably the fastest hands in the boxing world at the moment. Anytime you talk about Gary Russell, you got to mention the hand speed that this guy brings every time he steps into the ring. Even when he's hitting the hand pads, this guy's super quick, right? Fought once a year, was comfortable actually fighting once a year because when you corner him in an interview and then they ask him, okay, you're going to fight twice, three times, his response was always very clear, right? Which was probably not. I'm going to probably hold off, you know? But now, I mean, since we've been in quarantine, I mean, has this guy been watching the paint run down a little too much on the wall? Because now he's calling everybody and their mother out, and now he's calling out Crawford, and he told Al Heyman. He reported himself on his Twitter account that he told Al Heyman to make an offer to Terence Crawford to make it happen. Now, if it doesn't happen, you know why. Basically saying Crawford is ducking him. What am I missing here, Milcar? Right. Right? I mean, I'd be chasing everybody, that's in my division, And Nato put out there, he asked this, who's the bigger disappointment in boxing right now, Gary Russell or Terence Crawford? I'm going to go with Gary Russell. I don't, I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah. I mean, that I thought that was going to be. I thought that was going to be a much tougher fight. It ended up it wasn't very much. I mean, it was a pretty much a shutout on his side for Gary, but I mean, career wise, I think Crawford is the guy that's not disappointment yet because the fact that there are good potential fights out there. I think the disappointment would be if he did accept a Gary. I mean, I don't know about how you guys feel, but if he accepted a Gary Russell fight, I'd be like, oh, dude, what's going on? I think so. Yeah, I agree with you. The whole Tank Davis would be a more realistic thing. I don't know. I don't know how real the Gary Russell and him telling Al Heyman, get me in there with Crawford. Is it maybe trying to create noise? Is this a publicity? I don't know. Who knows, right? But okay, let's go. Let's move on from that. I don't because I don't think we're gonna figure that one out, man. That's still gonna be a puzzle in my eyes. I'm still waiting for Crawford to announce who he's gonna face next. What's gonna happen there? Is he gonna cross the street? Like I said, Bob obviously has the game plan for him for the duration of his career. So we don't know what's going to go on there. But I tell you what, did Bob do that I really really like, and I was in the beginning I was scared. I didn't think this was going to happen. Um, I was like, yeah, we might not see this fight. You know, these two fighters end up stepping in the ring, but it was announced that everything was worked out. Lomachenko and Teofimo Lopez agreed to step in on October 17th, and it's not going to be on pay per view. It's going to be on ESPN, which is a great move. I think it's a phenomenal move on their end, and it just explains and tells you how important that I mean how much Bob understands the landscape of what's going on right now and how we can capitalize. Just because the fact too, I think you got to kind of add this. Showtime came out with their schedule, and they came out immediately what they were doing with some of the pay per view fights. They're going to have what? I believe it's three, right? Three fights going to be on pay per view, and I think Top Rank and Bob Arum are like, do we really want to compete with that where people are going to have to decide and we may not generate the amount of viewership and money that we're hoping? Should we just go on the free platform? That probably would be the best move, and it is the best move. I'm excited about this fight. We got two guys that have been chasing it. Well, yeah, one guy that was chasing the champion and finally got underneath the skin of the older guy, and the older guy said, that's it. I'm done. I want to jack this dude up. I want to prove to him I'm the best in the world. You're the upcomer. You're the Michael Grant of the division, and I'm the Lennox Lewis. This is a great fight. Amilcar, are you excited as much as I am about this fight? Right. Absolutely, man. I mean, look, this is what I like. Boxing is always prime for prime. When you get two fighters in their prime, it makes it kind of extra special. When you get a upcomer facing a guy that's kind of been king of the hill for quite some time and a very dominant champion, you know, and the other upcomer's got an eraser, it makes it even a bigger fight. You know, I know some people want to see the change of guard. Lomachenko, has been on some kind of edgy fights where especially against Linares. Linares was having some success. He hurt Lomachenko. He almost looked like he had Lomachenko out of there. But Lomachenko dug deep, came back, got up, and came back stronger. And he stopped Linares. Okay. And a fight that a lot of folks that Linares wasn't going to last 3 or 4 rounds because he's always been kind of chinny. That's what they've been. That was kind of the tale of the story. He was going to face an older guy in Linares who has been knocked out and kind of chinny. But they didn't look at the duration of time that Linares hadn't been stopped. So you had a really strong Linares get in there and gave everything, left it in the ring against Lomachenko. Take nothing away from Lomachenko, though, right? I mean, because that's where folks right now are giving Teofimo Lopez the edge of stepping in the ring in October is that Lomachenko's been hurt, and he was hurt by an older champion. So imagine what the younger Lion's going to do to a long tooth champion. The story looks great. And to me, it's still a very pick 'em fight in my opinion. Umilcar. I'm not close to who I'm picking yet because I think I'm on the fence on this one. I think the closer we get to it, the more I will tell you where I'm going to sway. I listen to Hispanics Causing Panic every week on Wednesday night, and it goes on to our Leaving the Ring feed. And I like when what G Funk says about why he's picking Lopez. He makes a lot of good points, but at the same time, those points may be a bit too early. The power, the youth, all of that can be used against you. And Lomachenko is one of those fighters that can turn some of your best traits against you. And that's why, to me, this is a much more interesting fight because it could quickly become a chess match or a checkers match. Right, Nakatomi fight. Yeah. Yeah, I think I lost you there, Emil Carr. Oh, okay. Give me a second here. Um, yeah, I mean, I think there's so many variables against Lomachenko and Lopez that there's no question that whoever you're going to pick is you're going to have definitely some strong points. I think it's not very predictable, this fight, um, because of what both guys bring to the table. The Japanese fighter, in my opinion, now when I look at it, I mean, there's obviously things you can point out that didn't work for Lopez where he struggled. But the only thing that I could say about that fighter that he faced, the Japanese kid, is the height. Lomachenko doesn't have that. So this is by far, yeah, he's smaller. So to me, it's by far a little bit more different. Where I thought Lopez was struggling with the height, that could have definitely been something that was a little surprising for him, and he needed to adjust to. And he never stopped in that fight. He never stopped. So the closer this fight gets, I think we're gonna have a lot more to talk about. But definitely want to break it down, and then we'll have our prediction. But I thought it was a great announcement for Top Rank, for Lomachenko, and for Lopez that it's happening in October. If the COVID doesn't knock it down and keep it out of the ring, that should be just a great night in October. Um, let me move on really quick. Andrew Ruiz is talking about returning to the ring, and the name that keeps popping up, and they're saying that it's more and likely this is going to be the guy that's going to be across him the day that he debuts back for PBC and Al Heyman for Andy Ruiz is going to be Kristen Nightmare Arreola. I don't know about you guys. I don't know how I feel about that. Amilcar, how do you feel about it? Right. You know, here's my thing. Chris Oriella is like a Miracon. He's never been in a bad fight. The Chris just doesn't have that chin that Amir Khan has, So there's not that scary moment. His last outing for Chris was a great outing. He fought his ass off. He definitely fought his right to have another TV date. Is it the smartest thing because you want your fighters to walk away with all their bearings? No. I think Chris's better days have gone and passed. I agree with you. There's more on the other side of the fence of boxing that could be greener for him at the moment. But here you have a guy that's fought his whole life, and like most fighters, this is all they know. They don't have that retirement. They don't get like gold watches like Steve Kim says, waiting for them. They basically fight in the Wild West, and they're gunslingers. And it's very difficult for them to put it away in some type of box and then bury it, because of the fact that this is the only way they know how to make money. Nobody has kind of shown them that there's other traits and other things that they can do with their lives. Is it a sellable fight in Southern California? Absolutely. I think it's going to be huge. I think it's going to do great numbers because of the fact, like you mentioned, you have two Chicanos, two Mexicanos. They're going to show up and they're going to fight. What do I see? Andy Ruiz being the victor in this fight if he doesn't come if he doesn't show up in shape. Because Chris, regardless, Chris has always been known as the fat guy. But let's be honest here, the fat guy that never gasses out. He's never performed like Andy Ruiz. The way Andy Ruiz performed against AJ, Chris has never shown that or done that in his career. He's always came to fight. He fought Vitaly Klitschko. He came and he fought his ass off, but they were having trouble in camp. Like he wasn't showing up. They couldn't find him, etc., etc., etc. I've always said this about Chris the Nightmare. He has always been the Riddick Bowe of this era of boxing. A guy that just wasn't, too really serious. You have two guys that have discipline problems. The one thing is though is Chris is like Benavides. Could come in overweight, not make weight, but he's gonna let his hands go. And it's very rare you see him gasping for air or slowing down. Andy Ruiz has shown that if he's not serious. If he doesn't take Chris serious, we may see another upset and we may see the end of Andy Ruiz. And anyways, in any talks of him ever getting back into the championship contendancies. Yep. I hope so, and I think it's going to be a great night. I expect it to be a short night. I think that Andy can pull off a sixth or seventh round stoppage if he comes prepared and trained. I'm not sure if he's going to do that because it's going to be hard to get up for Chris the Nightmare because he may look at it as easy work. It will be his bad because, like I said, we haven't seen Chris the Nightmare in a bad fight, and we haven't seen a Chris the Nightmare gas out and fold. The guy's been a true professional showing up on fight night. Anyways, hey man, let's get to the no, by far, he's no Eric Molina. The criticism is that Chris doesn't have the chisel body that so many of us would want, like an AJ. He's got that body of a heavyweight. He looks like a heavyweight, walks around looking like a heavyweight. Chris has never had that, but he throws his hand like a freaking lightweight cruiserweight. And that could cause a lot of problems for Andy, who is quick and also could throw combinations. But his is more in spurts. Chris the Nightmare is a working horse, but he may be an old racing horse. But could he become the Sea Biscuit of the heavyweights? I'm not sure. It's a good run if he does that against Andy Ruiz. It's just going to be very tough. There are some pockets there that he could fill, Chris the Nightmare, against Andy Ruiz if Andy doesn't show up for the fight. Anyways, let's talk about the upcoming schedule here for this weekend. Amilcar, can you pull that up, read it off, see what we got going on? Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I think so too. I think with White, there's a lot, like you said, there's a lot on the line. White definitely needs to come in shape. He can't come in the way he looked on the undercard of AJ and Ruiz. Can't do that. Povetkin is going to come in shape, and Povetkin, like you mentioned, Povetkin, we've never seen him in a bad fight. He's going to make it a very tough fight. Um, whether White goes in there believing the victory is already won, I hope he doesn't do that because there's already talks of AJ and White happening. If White is victorious, because the fact is he can't look past Povetkin. There's no way you can look past that guy. That guy's going to show up, and that guy's going to fight him for tooth and nail to get that win. Um, if I'm Povetkin, I'm going to go to the body if it looks soft. That's what I'm going to work at. White is not. He's not a guy that's going to fight you at the distance. He's going to fight you. So it's not like it's unheard of. You can't touch that body. You just got to be worried about what's going to come at you because you're going to leave yourself open for White to land those hooks that he likes to throw. So to me, it's a very interesting fight. Uh, I'm going to go with if White comes in shape, it's his. But if he doesn't, and he shows some lack of discipline, because we've seen that with him in the past, okay, as we mentioned with Andy Ruiz and Chris the Nightmare, White is in those categories himself that he sometimes shows that he's not disciplined. He can come in a bit overweight, balloon, if you want to call that. He comes in looking like a balloon. Where Povetkin doesn't do that. He's going to come in shape, and he's going to want to bang, and he's going to want to take away any opportunities that White is hoping to happen on the long run. But I would go with White if he's in shape. What about you, Milcar? Right. You know, what's interesting about this fight too, Amilcar, is that Povetkin is in activity, the White inactivity. So they're really on really level playing field. One guy really doesn't have the upper hand. But the thing with Povetkin is what he's got to look at is the soft spots that that how White looked, and that's where if I was in his corner and on his team, I would immediately tell them, "Hey, Povetkin." I would immediately tell Povetkin, "Hey, test the body. Let's see how in shape he is. Let's see if he can run into the 12th round. Let's see if we can bring him into the deep end. If he can last, And that's the thing that I would honestly have Povetkin test out and go after. Because in Povetkin's career, we've never seen that. We've never seen him out of shape, and we've never seen him in a bad fight. With White, we have. So that right there is up in the air, and that's something that can definitely be tested. So that's what I would like to look for. But at the same time, White is a very Dillian White's a very crafty fighter. He's not a dumb guy, you know, and yep, he's got a great jab, and I think that if he's out of shape and Povetkin does, decide to come out with some pressure, I tend to believe that White's going to fall into trying to box, and keep him on the outside, and he's going to struggle, and he may get a narrow win, a very narrow win, a questionable win, which would make AJ and his team jump for that match immediately. Because if White comes out and he looks spectacular, we may hear the end of talks of Dillian White and Anthony Joshua. Wait. You don't want to talk about Katie Taylor? I honestly, I'm excited about that rematch. You know, I'm actually, I did too. I did too. I thought she lost that fight. Yep. Yeah, I mean, if you want to, if like I said, loosely the word robbery, you know, I don't like putting a tag on. I was a robbery. I believe that was absolutely a robbery. I thought the first fight, yeah, no, the first fight was great. I thought Persoon came out. I thought that she looked like a female version of Margarito. Went out there, banged the shit out of Katie Taylor. Out hustled her, out muscled her. But I give kudos to Taylor because she went out there and she stood her ground. But to me, she just could have won those rounds. For her to take on this rematch, which Rolly, take note, this is what you need to do to go back in the ring with the rematch with Persoon is great because it only tells me how much that she believes she needs a much more clear decision win or stoppage over supposedly her the woman that should have got the win, the conqueror. I think this is a great matchup. Now, if Taylor doesn't make any adjustments, she's going to lose this rematch again and possibly even stopped because she looked like she was on the verge of being stopped. If these were 3-minute rounds, Amilcar, could you disagree with me that she might have, well, yeah, right, yep, right, right. I mean, I'd like to talk about the Saturday DAZN card with the female fighter. There was an upset there, but I didn't watch it, and I'm going to tell you why I didn't watch it because I'm not going to pay DAZN. They're still taking money out of my. Yeah, I, I didn't watch it. Yeah, my reason now to pay the $100 that they're asking me for, even though they're charging me still, would be for this card that's coming up. I'm probably gonna have to do what Nado and a few other guys have told me, suck it up and pay for it and watch it. I'm gonna have to do that. Yeah, for this weekend, exactly. That's what I'm saying. For this weekend, I'm gonna have to suck it up and just pay $100 and do it, and then probably try to get my money back for the past since March. They've been taking it out of my account, money when I had. Yeah, I canceled it with them, and they still keep doing it. And there's no way of getting a hold of these bastards. But anyways, oh, dude, they're doing it to a lot of folks. Yeah. Yep. They're doing to a lot of folks. I see a lot of people on Twitter mention it. Anytime I mention it, they'll say it's happened to me. I know Kurt, from Boston Esquire. They were doing it to him. I don't know if they're doing it anymore, but they were doing it to him. But anyways, I like I said, the rematch between Taylor and Person, great rematch. I can't wait for it. It even makes the heavyweight headliner even that much more exciting. Hey, let's move on. Let's go on with the schedule. Right. I think it's interesting because Smith is a guy that's going to come forward. Alvarez is a counterpuncher. Alvarez is actually kind of a he likes to sit back and wait. He likes to let you think that you have the upper hand and you're getting the fight. Um, he did that with Kovala and was able to beat Kovala the rematch. When Kovala just made an adjustment in their, I mean, in the first match, Alvarez, he sat back and I've seen him do it numerous times. He sits back, he waits for the guy to commit, and then he decides to let his hand or his counterpunch, and his counterpunch always gets the sneak in and gets the stoppage. He did it with Kovala, but in the rematch, though, Kovala came out there, adjusted, and made it hard for Alvarez to do the same thing that he had done the first time around. Um, I could see him trying to do that with Smith. The only difference is that with Kovala, you was kind of getting the tail end of who Kovala was. Smith, in my opinion, still is a guy um, that still got a lot left in the tank, and possibly wants to make a statement by stopping Alvarez. I think the workmanship of Smith is going to be probably the more telling because he's going to be breaking down Alvarez. To me, Alvarez's style and his game plans of sitting back and waiting for that perfect moment is all wrong against Smith. Smith is too heavy handed to do that. I just don't see that happening. I think that Alvarez is going to have to come out of his shell and use the jab and come forward himself, which he normally doesn't like to do. Like I said, he likes to sit back. He likes to let you do your work, and then he's going to look for that opening. He's going to catch you when you least expect it because you kind of let your guard down, believing that you have the upper hand and you're getting the win. You're winning the round and you're beating them. This is kind of like it's almost like in the belief of this is easy in that sense, and that's where he gets you. This is a got you moment that he always gets his opponents. I don't see that happening with Smith, and I think with Alvarez, he's getting a little bit up there in age, and how much can your body endure in that style? I'm not quite sure. So I'm looking for Smith to stop him in mid rounds. Right. No. Right. Hmm. And he's not explosive like Pascal. Right. Well, I'll point this out though, Milcar. I'll point this out though. Um, Pascal though is explosive. Alvarez is not that explosive. Yeah. Right. No. No. Exactly. What else have we got on that schedule? I, I gotta agree with you, man. I think it's a straight up showcase fight, which I'm fine with. I mean, I know people are shitting on it. It's not a very great fight. It isn't, But I mean, look at Sean Porter's resume. It's the deepest out of anybody in the rosters of welterweights. Sean Porter stands out the most. He's fought the who's and what's it in that division. And for him to sit back and say, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to fight this other kind of fringe contender out there as a showcase to keep me as a busy, um, and finish out the year for 2020. Why not? And I'm not disappointed about it because, I mean, you go from Errol Spence. He tried to get Crawford, didn't happen. Yeah, I mean, so what is he supposed to do? Kind of ride out the whole year? This is the worst connect. The questionable loss. The questionable loss. Here's the worst case scenario for Sean Porter. He doesn't show up for the fight, meaning that he didn't take this fight very serious, because he's pretty hungry. When we saw him get again with Porter against Thurman and Errol Spence, etc. Uh, he may go out there and allow this guy to be in the fight, or he just goes out there and mauls him up and does exactly what a lot of us have been thinking. he's gonna go out there and just outclass this guy because this guy's not on the same level. Or Porter can go, I'm gonna give it in, I'm gonna give it some rounds, and I'm gonna be criticized, and everybody's gonna come down on me, and they're gonna say, oh, this is the reason why, blah 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 blah, and that will be the talks. I don't think that would happen because Porter is such a prideful guy. You know, I think he's a true professional, and I think that he's really looking for another maybe a rematch with Errol Spence. Definitely a fight with Crawford. Ugas is out of the picture. I don't I never even heard him talk about Ugas ever again. You know, maybe he would say I want Cal Brook is how Cal Brook is so bad now. Redeem himself in that rematch. I mean, that's a big possibility down the line. But other than that, yeah, yeah, I would too. If you're not going to get Crawford, you're not going to get Spence again. Or the winner of Spence and Garcia. Um, why not go for Cal Brook? End your career with that. And then if you're going to get, I mean, I just don't see Ugas. I just don't see him doing that. At all. I mean, I think everybody is staying clear of that kid at this moment. Ugas is going to have to do what Porter did, really, and start using that mouthpiece, start showing up at the fights, making a lot of ruckus, making it uncomfortable and unavoidable for these other guys to then finally just face it because the fans will be behind Ugas. Because here's the truth, is that we know how good Ugas is, but his fan base is very slim. And Porter worked at that fan base. Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's got to follow the yellow brick road of Porter. He's just got to do that. I mean, if he's gonna want these bigger fights, he's gonna have to let loose. And we know you're good. We know you're talented, but you got to create a certain buzz. You got to be your own PR guy, and that's what Porter finally understood. You remember Porter was trying to be like Andre Ward and Mr. Nice Guy, big smile and Mr. Conservative and like, oh no, I'm not going to say bad about anybody else out there, hee hee ha ha, and then finally said, fuck it, you know what? I'm not getting these fights, so I got to make Uncle Al notice me because they're treating me like the stepchild here. Ugas right now is in that shadow of what Porter decided to walk away from. So Ugas has got to stop being the stepchild at the PBC world and start shaking up the leaves so that he can get some notice and get these fights. Right. Right. He's not very good. I'll just point that out. I don't think Horn should have a problem with him. Um, I know like a lot of people like to shit on Horn, but he's I mean he's he's got a similar style of Porter. He will mark you up. Can Tim hold off Horn aggression? Can he hold off him pressing him forward, mauling him up like the Hatton style that he has? His dad couldn't hold off Hatton, but his dad was really off the at the edge of his career at the time. So a lot of dirty stuff. Yeah. I mean, I just don't know how good Tim Tszyu is. And then what I've saw, I don't think he's very good. I mean, I think the name. Let me ask you this, and let me ask anybody out there right now is name me one fighter that spawned from a great fighter that turned out to be even a fraction of what their father was. I don't really. There's not really a name that comes off the top of my head. Yeah. So I don't expect him. Is this a good matchup for him? I don't know because I haven't really seen anything that tells me he's ready for Horn. I mean, Horn has kind of been tested. He went out there and did he lose against Pacquiao? I thought he did, but I also thought that he gave everything that Pacquiao can have. I mean, he forced Pacquiao to dig deep in that fight. Super competitive fight. He got out there with Crawford. Styles make fights. Crawford was too much to handle because he just couldn't figure out, he couldn't get close to Crawford. So, writing off Horn and just saying he's not that Tim Tszyu should just walk through him, will point out the significant fight that Tim Tszyu has done that backs up that argument. I don't know one of them. Layla Ali, Brandon's. She didn't fight anybody. She didn't. I mean, she avoided Ann Wolf. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I'm actually curious about the fight, but like I said, I don't. Me personally, what I've seen and what what's much of Tim Tszyu, I don't see anything there that tells me that Horn should have a problem with. I think Horn is gonna go out there and maul him up, and it's gonna be an ugly fight, and it's gonna be up to the kid to dig. I think it's too early for this kid in his career to take somebody on like that. I think they need to groom him, groom him to a point where he's like his man strength. Is it there? Do you think his man strength is there to hold off a guy that's a career welterweight that's going to go out there and his style is to be in your chest? I don't know. Yeah. Does he have his dad's right hand? I mean even his nowhere. Nowhere. You know. Oh yeah, I loved Costa Zoo, dude. I loved him. I thought every, exactly. And like Nato just point out, he is bigger than his dad because he is fighting in the welterweight division. But Horn went on, yeah, yeah. Oh, it's going to be 154. Yeah, yeah. I don't know, man. Like I said, I'm not too confident in Tim Tszyu. If he does, I think it would be a great name on his resume. Um, um, but at the same time, ugh, I think this win should go to Horn. I think he's more experienced. I think that the style that he brings is a very difficult style to get to keep off. It's an exhausting style. When you got a guy that wants to box and wrestle at the same time and is comfortable grappling you and hitting you, roughing you up with your shoulders and everything, that's a difficult style to keep off if you don't have a solid jab and your footwork is not on point. It's very difficult, you know? So in closing, that's canceled, I heard. I heard I thought the Linares and Fortuna fight is canceled because Linares caught COVID-19. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Nato believes that Tazoo knocks out Horn, um, which I would be impressed if he does. To tell you the truth, I would be impressed. Yeah. Yep. If Tazoo, let me ask you guys this: if Tim Tazoo knocks out Horn, what does that say about Crawford and the rest of the guys? Because it's not that far off of his loss to Crawford and Pacquiao. It's not that far off. Shit. You imagine that? You're Pacquiao and Crawford and Tim Tszyu, who hasn't proven anything except for having a name, famous name, goes out there and knocks out a guy that, you know, that where Pacquiao struggled with, end up losing to, and Crawford, it took him how many rounds? They went into the late rounds before he can get a stoppage over Horn. Yeah, exactly. No, I don't think so either. I mean, when they're not fighting the welterweight, they're going 154, and that tells you everything. You know, that could have affected Horn at the welterweight division, so he might be stronger than 154. But I mean, if Tszyu, um, which you know, I don't know. Like I said, it's an interesting fight. We got to see what happens. Now that Nato pointed out that he's picking him, that even makes me want to watch it even more because that tells me because Nato's an avid fan. It's not like he doesn't watch fucking fights. This guy watches fights. He watches fights. So if he says he thinks no, he's gonna knock him out. Now it's like Brian Fogg. You know, my boy Brian Fogg, who I talk to on a regular base. When Brian tells me something, I'm like, really? Like he's like, there's only a certain amount of people that can change my mind about shit. You know what I mean? In boxing, and like you and Brian are like the very small circle of boxing heads that I listen to and go like, huh, shit, that's actually a really good point. It fucks me all up because then now it really gets me thinking. Nato just did that to me. Now I'm like, dude, okay, then what have I been missing? Now I'm gonna go back. Now, thanks a lot. Watch, I'm gonna be staying up till like 3 in the fucking morning today, all because of you trying to find enough tape on Tim Tszyu to see whether or not he has that chance of knocking out Horn, which is gonna be laughable if he does, because now it kind of discredits anything, they needed accomplishments that Crawford got over on him. Um, he said, "Blame it on the alcohol." I know. I gotta get me a beer. I'll start thinking like Nato too. If I had like 4 beers in me already, you know. um, Yeah. Wouldn't it be awesome? It would. Who's there at 154? I can't just off the top of my head. I can't even think of anybody at 154. Oh, the Charlo. Yeah, yeah, he's not ready. Beating horn doesn't say anything. That. But it's a good start. It's a good name on your resume, especially if you knock him out. Knock him out. That's a great start to now bring him into the states because they can use that as a highlight. That he because you could use that as right, exactly. J Rock. Oh yeah, he's got J Rock. Which J Rock, yeah, well, a great way is going on ESPN, and a great way is by knocking out Horn, because you could be now you're in the place of Crawford. You know, they can use that. That's leverage right there. Yep, all day, every day. Anyways, folks, man, I thank everybody that came on and tuned in and listened to us here on Leaving the Ring. We're at our last seconds here left on the show. It's always fun. I'm glad we got back here on Monday. Apologize for last week. Milcar was on vacation. He was in Cancun. Míralo, muy chingón in Cancun. Well, there you go. As always, everybody, don't drink and drive because you will spill your beer. You guys have a great night.